Hey everybody! In my last video I shared how to sew with knits. I shared the proper settings and stitches that you need to sew on knit fabric. And today I am going to share with you how to finish on knits. When you do a hem on knits, you're going to be doing it a little bit differently. You want to have 2 stitching lines on your hem instead of just one. The reason being that knits a lot of times are pretty thin and the fabric curls, and so with one stitching line it's kind of like flip over weird. If you have 2 stitching lines, then it's going to lay flatter, and then it also helps to give it a little bit more stretch when you use a twin needle. A twin needle this is what it looks like, and I'll just get this out for you, but a twin needle is just how it sounds. It's a twin needle. There's 2 needles there, and you thread both of them to give your stitching 2 lines like this. So the front side will look like this with 2 lines, and then the back side has it's kind of like a zigzaggy kind of a stitch, and that helps give it some stretch. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Before I do that, I do want to follow up a little bit from my last video when I was talking to you about sewing with knits. We talked about skip stitches and how sometimes with the jersey and the ballpoint needles, a lot of my students and other sewists in the sewing community have been struggling with the skip stitches. And my cousin actually watched this video that I put out and messaged me. She's also a sewer, and she suggested using a stretch needle. She said that once she switched to a stretch needle, she had no problem. So I wanted to pass that along to anybody who's struggling with sewing, sewing on knits. If you're having trouble with skip stitches, try a stretch needle. It'll say on there just like, let's see, just like this one here says ballpoint, it's going to say like stretch needle across, okay? But now I'm going to bring you over to my machine and show you how to thread your twin needle. Okay, so first thing you need to know is that you're going to be using 2 top threads to use your twin needle. So if you don't have 2 spools of thread, it's best to use 2 spools. But if you don't, you could wind your bobbin. I do that a lot. I just wind my bobbin and then I put it on the upright spool right here, and then I keep this one here. So that way I have the same color thread. You want to have the same color, unless you don't. Sometimes you want something different for decoration. Okay, we're going to come here and we're going to take out our other needle. I'm going to turn this on, and I'm going to put my twin needle in here. Pardon the dust. Okay, bring that up in there, and then tighten it. I have my bobbin already in place, and so now I'm going to thread my needles. So let's see, we'll start with this one first, and we're going to bring it through and we're going to thread it the way we normally thread it through our thread guides. Tuck it behind here. This one I'm going to use on my right needle. If I can grab that thread. Okay, I always keep my finger here just so it doesn't get twisted around the needle. So that one goes there, and now we're going to thread our second spool of thread the exact same way through our thread guides. I know it's going to feel a little bit weird because you already have, you know, one thread going through there, but that's okay. I promise it'll all work out. Just keep your threads pulled tight there. And then you're going to just thread your next needle. Okay. So it kind of looks like it's twisted, but don't worry about that. Just make sure that your threads are all pulled back to the side. Now, to sew our stretches, we had it on the zigzag. You're going to use your straight stitch for a twin needle. Make sure that it's on that, because if you leave it on zigzag, it's going to break on your presser foot. So your foot is there. Length, I'm going to keep the same. Width, yours will be at 0. My machine's a little bit different. So, okay, and then tension. This is something that we kind of have to play around with a little bit on the tension. Normally with knits, you have to tighten it up just a little bit. Okay, so I have my piece of fabric that we're going to hem. I already folded it and ironed it. I folded it over 5/8. That's the size hem that I wanted, was 5/8, and you can see I put some pins in there. Normally, you're used to hemming with this folded part facing you, so the wrong side of the fabric is facing you, but for this hem, we actually need the right side of the fabric to be facing up, so that fold is underneath. We want to make sure as we sew that the needle is sewing on the actual fabric, like on that fold. We don't want it to go off of the fabric here. So to do that, we're going to take it over less than 5/8 because this is a 5/8 fold. So that means that we're going to bring this over, I'm going to bring it over around 3/8. It's kind of like right in between like the 3/8 and the 4/8 because I want to make sure that it's going to grab that fabric underneath. Always test this out on a scrap piece first so that you can make sure all of your settings, your tension, and then where your seam line, your seam allowance line, like just so you can make sure all of that is right. So we're going to just hold these threads as we start. And we're just going to take it down, and you can do a back stitch. Now, remember if you're doing a circular hem, like a sleeve or a skirt, it's circular, right? So you're going to be going around the whole thing. So when you get back to that beginning stitch, you can just stitch over your same stitches again, and then you don't have to back stitch. That counts as your back stitch. I'm just doing a straight line, so I was showing you that you can back stitch. And we're just going to keep moving it down along. Now I'm going to stop right here and just peek at the back to make sure that it's grabbing the folds, and it is. So I'll show you that in more detail when we pull it out. And so I'm just going to keep going. I know it kind of sounds funny. It's thick fabric. I'm going to take my pin out. And then I'll just do a little hem right there so you can see that you can hem. So we're just going to pull it out. And there you have it. There's the front of your hem. You can see how the lines are really nice and straight and even. And then on the back side, see how it kind of looks like that zigzag a little bit. You can see the bobbin and then the top thread. And when you pull it, it doesn't rip. If you just did a straight stitch all the way around, there would be no stretch, there would be no give, and your thread would snap. So you want to do it this way with your double needle. And if you can, it's dark fabric, so I know it's hard to see, but you can see that the stitches are just right inside the edge of that fold line. And so like I said, I did a 5/8 fold, and then I placed this on the 3/8 line, and that was using the extra wide twin needle. There's like a regular wide, extra wide. I used the extra wide. It doesn't really matter, but like I said, just test it out first so that you can see how it all stitches out. So that's all there is for your double needle hem on knits. And if you missed my other videos talking about sewing on knits, be sure to go back and check that. And also check my YouTube page for other tutorials and my website for other tutorials to keep you sewing and helping you to learn new techniques. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them for me in the comments. Otherwise, I will see you next time.